You've probably been told to never round your lower back and that flexion is dangerous. But what if lifting with a rounded spine actually made you more resilient? Introducing the Jefferson Curl, a loaded stretch to strengthen your entire posterior chain, your hamstrings, calves, and lower back. It builds end range mobility so that you're strong enough to bend down and use it in everyday life. Imagine picking up your kids or grabbing the groceries in awkward postures with a bent spine. No hesitation, no pain. Today, you'll learn how to perfect your technique, how to progress the exercise safely and effectively, and finally understand the truth about lifting with a rounded lower back. Earlier this year, I was tired of having a weak lower back and tight hamstrings. Here's my transformation after 6 months, and I've now built up to 60 kilos. Now I can touch my palms comfortably on the floor anytime, and I haven't had an episode of back pain since. I'll be honest, I was skeptical when I first saw the Jefferson Curl. It looks like one of those gimmicky TikTok exercises, but after seeing how many people were seeing great results and praising it, I had to give it a shot. Here's the technique I like to use for Jefferson curls. I recommend using a Zercher grip. This is where you put the weight between your elbows. This lowers your center of gravity, having the weight closer towards your midline. It also reduces the shearing forces on your back and makes balancing easier. This position puts you in a more flexed posture automatically, promoting that segmenting of the spine instead of hinging at the hips. This raises your core engagement, increasing that intra-abdominal pressure. This gives your spine more stability as well as safety. The Zercher also turns it into a biceps exercise. Any excuse to involve the arms, am I right, boys? Having the feet shoulder width apart is what I prefer using. This setup gives your hips more space for your legs to move between. This way, if you have any restriction or tight hamstrings, you'll be able to go deep. With the legs, you want to lock the knees out, squeezing the quads hard at all times to pull yourself down deep into the stretch. The most important part of the Jefferson Curl is to articulate your spine segment by segment. Start by tucking your chin, then round through the upper, mid, and finally lower back in one smooth, controlled motion. Once you've hit your maximum stretch, reverse the rounding motion, uncurling yourself from the bottom up. With breathing, I recommend just doing it naturally. By calmly inhaling and exhaling, your body will use the stiffness it needs for the job. That way, you can maximize your range of motion. The Jefferson Curl isn't about lifting the maximum weight like on a deadlift. There's no need to hold your breath or use that Valsalva maneuver. With tempo, just control the eccentric and pause briefly at the bottom. You're going to curl your way back up with control as well. This speed of Jefferson's keeps it safe and it effectively strengthens every part of the range. Pro tip, when you get towards the bottom, I want you to reach forward and protract your shoulders while keeping the weight close. This is going to anteriorly tilt your pelvis and stretch those hamstrings even more. How heavy you should go on Jeffersons is the most common question. You can literally start with just your body weight, learning how to segment your spine safely. But most of you can comfortably start with 5 to 10 kilos. You want the weight to permit, not restrict your range of motion. It's heavy enough to gain to that deep stretch, but not so heavy that you're scared or timid. Guys, please don't attach ego to Jefferson curls, even if you can lift multiple plates on the deadlift. Your body needs time to safely adapt to moving heavier weights under spinal flexion. Always progress your load and range patiently, and your body will build strength and resilience with this sensible approach. The quality of the motion is arguably more important than how heavy you Jefferson curl. That's an important takeaway for those of you who are serious about mastering bent back deadlifts. Treat each rep with respect and your body will change. Your body is going to find ways to cheat and get lazy. Here's the mistakes to watch out for. Hinging at the hips turns this into a deadlift. It makes it less lower back focused, which is not good. After watching my own training footage, I realized I'm guilty of this one too. It's time to fix that. Bending the knees is another error, and this one takes away the stretch on the posterior chain. Watch out for that micro knee bend on this variation. The most common mistake is using too much weight too soon. By going too heavy for your level, you won't be able to go as deep. Technique is likely to break down, and the tempo won't be as controlled either. Also, watch out for adding large amounts of weight from one workout to the next. You can't rush the process with these awkward lifts. All right. Lumbar flexion. Is it as bad as people think? The argument is that rounding your back under load squeezes the front of the disc in your spine and it pushes the inner gel backwards. supposedly causing herniations, nerve pain, and long-term disc damage. Critics of the Jefferson curl often refer to an animal cadaver study, which was done with repeated flexion over 24 hours, something like 80,000 flexion movements. But that research doesn't represent how a living body works. It was done on a pig spine, a dead one, without any muscles, blood flow, or nervous system. A living human spine, it adapts, it heals, it gets stronger when trained progressively. If flexion was inherently dangerous, cyclists, rowers, skiers who spent hours into flexion would have more back pain. Studies show the opposite. Their spines are healthier and more hydrated than sedentary controls. We've all heard this advice before. You've got to maintain a neutral spine, an upright posture. That's the safest way to lift. The idea of a perfectly neutral spine is a myth. There's no consensus what that even means. Besides, the spine flexes normally during exercise. Even trained lifters who are told to keep your back perfectly straight during squats are going to flex the lumbar spine around 20 to 30 degrees. Now, of course, if you're going for a max deadlift, it makes sense to use a more straighter spine. This position lets you produce more force and maximally engage the posterior chain muscles. But in the context of a Jefferson curl where you're using much lighter weights with the goal of mobility, when you train this movement safely, flexion, it's not inherently dangerous. Guys, I looked deep into the research and there is no strong evidence that flexion of the lower back causes pain. In short, modern research challenges this old assumption that bending your back is dangerous. It's just not been proven. With low back pain, the risk factors are a lot more general, as you can see. It is way more complex than this exercise or this movement is bad. Despite the Jefferson curl being so effective, it's not for everyone. Here's who should avoid it. If you're dealing with acute lower back pain or sciatica, where you're getting that nerve-related symptoms running down one leg, it's best to let that settle before trying Jefferson curls. Disclaimer, make sure that you speak to a qualified health professional before trying. You've got to be cleared to move without pain and ready to go. Nothing feels better than moving pain-free. Your body was made for full mobility, but modern life makes us lose it. I'll show you a foolproof way to get it back. Unlock your full body mobility with my routine at fitnessfaqs.com. All right, programming. Here's how I like to do it to get the most out of this movement. I've found the 5 to 10 rep range works well for Jefferson curls. Given how slow the negative is, I find really high rep ranges to become physically and mentally tedious. Conversely, in regular training, I'm not a fan of chasing 1 rep maxes on this exercise. Sure, lifting heavy for social media may give you a quick dopamine hit, but it's not sustainable or a realistic way to train long term. Knowing when to increase the weight on a Jefferson curl is more art than it is science. Just listen to your body. It's the best teacher. You'll have a clear idea of when to do so when during a workout, you're having complete control over the range of motion and you're comfortably hitting your target rep range with ease. For me, increasing the weight by 2.5 to 5 kilos was a strategy that was best for challenging me, but also tolerable enough to feel safe. I'd like to share with you another favorite variation of mine when it comes to Jefferson curls. The extensions. This one really teaches you how to compress your body and actively pull yourself deeper using the hip flexors. Since you're working at the end range, you'll build both strength and flexibility right where it counts, thanks to that extended time under tension. It is a challenging movement because you're spending so much time in that deep stretch, so go a little bit lighter on this one. My favorite method is doing 10 reps plus a 10 to 30 second isometric hold at the end. Give it a go and you'll be shocked at how good your body feels. When training Jefferson curls, I always superset them with hanging leg raises. Here's why. Activating your abs and hip flexors with that crunch motion fires up the muscles responsible for spinal flexion. Then, when you move into the Jefferson curl afterwards, those same muscles help you actively pull deeper into the stretch, letting the posterior chain fully lengthen. In simple terms, hip flexor compression drills strengthen the closing side of the movement, your abs, hip flexors, and deep core, those ones that draw your torso towards your legs. The result, you're going to be able to fold further forward with more control and access a more effective stretch. The calves, those cheeky lower leg muscles, play a bigger role in flexibility than most people think. Because this muscle crosses both the ankle and the knee, tight calves can actually limit how far you can bend forward or touch your toes. On leg day, before doing my Jefferson curls, I always started with 3 sets of deep calf raises, focusing on that stretch at the bottom. Alternatively, you could always just do a few sets of static calf stretches before your Jeffersons, and it's going to be as helpful. If you're someone who feels localized tightness behind the back of your knee, calf stretching before Jeffersons will help you a ton. In terms of when to do the Jefferson curl, I prefer doing it on my leg day because of the movement and muscles involved. I'm actually hitting my lower body twice per week, and I've found it fine to do this exercise on both days and still recover. I do heavy, full range of motion Jefferson curls once per week. Then on the other workout, I do those lighter Jefferson curl extensions. It's been the perfect balance of overloading, but also having enough recovery for my lower back. I'm a physio and movement optimist at heart. The Jefferson curl, when used correctly, can really transform your body. But remember, nuance and context matters. No exercise is good or bad. It depends. See you next video.